Arutperumjothi Arutperumjothi Aniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi 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 Aniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi
எல்லாம் செயல் கூடும் என்னானை அம்பலத்தே எல்லாம் வல்லான் தனையேத்து இன்று வருமோ நாளைக்கு வருமோ மற்ற என்று வருமோ அறியேன் எம் கோவே துன்று மல வெம்மாயற்று வெளிக்குள் வெளிகடந்து சும்மா இருக்கும் சுகம் அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி. I welcome everybody to the continuing session about our discourse on mastering the mind. So last week we did go in quite in details on the faculties of how the mind has been playing its own role. So this week is going to be a continuation of what we did in the last week. So we went through the points of how we can regulate the mind, mostly using the first one is having the attention focused on Sirchabai, and before that we cannot do it directly, so the gateway to it is the eyebrow center, so to have the focus in eyebrow center. The second one we went through was like not to find faults with others. So the third one is having no self-respect, so Thannai Madhiyadirthal. This one, if we contemplate on this point a bit, Perumal actually in Agaval tells that Nayunum Kadayen Iyunum Ilinen. So he is referring to him. He's referring him as a dog and as a bee. You know, it is. This is after achieving all the stuff, pretty close before he merges with God, is what he is referring to him as. So thinking about it, when any time, let's say we started following all this mind principles and all these principles on the body, we are set to be automatically on a better stage. And what happens is our ego creeps up. We become arrogant at that point of time, right? We compare ourselves with the rest of them. Oh, I'm doing all these things, but the rest of them is not doing anything. So automatically this ego starts to come up. Or even in worldly affairs, let's say we go to a party or to a function. What do we expect? We expect ourselves to be greeted, ourselves to be taken care of, and with all those crowd, we had an expectation always. We also want to get some part of the highlight in the function or in the party. Otherwise, what happens? We become party crashers. We may try to find faults. This is not good. That is not good, right? We start to say things about it. We start to complain. Something or the other, right? Things manifest, turn into different ways. Also, if we walk into something with the thought that we know everything and we are good, we are actually not opening ourselves and not giving us the opportunity to learn about anything in that. So we are not going to learn anything there. This happens in the worldly affairs too. We want to excel in something, and if we try to think that, oh, you know what, I'm already good in it, then, not a lot of things will go inside. So we are restricting there too. So this is about having no ego, basically. So no self-respect in there. So the next one we have is not to get angry with others, but show frustration on one's own characters. So we went into detail on what happens when we get angry, both internal and external, how it is detrimental to us, detrimental to our body, degrades our body. But still we are able to do it. Still, it's kind of tough to control it. It's not easy to control anger. So what Perumal is giving a hint is basically to show frustration on the anger itself. So when we are angry, we got to divert it back to our anger itself and show the frustration on our own character. At that time, anger will subside. And there are multiple techniques. People would say like, oh, just say 1 till 50 or 1 till 30. There are lots of techniques for it. So this introspection back on its character, on where this anger is originating from or why we are getting angry, will automatically subside the angry too. It will put down the anger. And even if we think about it on what we were angry or like before, like a month back or even a year back, right? I mean, drilling through it, is there really a reason, or what did we gain from it? Basically, what we did was it was pain for us. It wasn't good for our body. That's what really had happened there. Nothing but that. Nothing other than that, actually. So the last but not the least is removing all the artificial character inherited and be sattvic. So what is all the artificial characters? These are nothing but the greed, the jealous, the anger, the revenge, the hatred, the lust, and be just in a sattvic nature. And what is sattva gunam or sattvic character? Sattvic is purity, because all these artificial characters are inherited at some point of time. But the nature of soul is not that. The nature of soul is sattvic. So that is why Perumal says we have to turn to sattvic. And sattva guna is purity. It's the light basically. And it's what is favorable for attaining the salvation. I mean, how do we know a mind is sattvic? Is there a way to figure it out? Yeah, sattvic mind is always steady. So we say one thing today, and for the same thing we say something tomorrow. And then day after tomorrow we say something else. And we don't know what we will say after a week. It just keeps changing on and on. We don't know where we are. It's basically unsteady, wavering mind, totally. Right? So that is definitely not sattvic mind. And the sattvic mind is delighted internally. It doesn't need external forces to give its pleasure. It's happy with itself. It can stick in one place. It doesn't need entertainment. It doesn't need lots of programs to keep it occupied and busy. It can stay in one place indefinitely and, without any company. And even if it keeps friends with people, it keeps for a long, long, long time. It just doesn't keep on changing friends just because of benefits, just because of its own advantage, just to get something done. It keeps a long-term relationship. If it gets into something, it is more concentrated and focused. It can live in a food. It can live in sattvic food without any grumbling, without any problem, without complaining and stuff. That is how sattvic can be identified. Rajasic, on the other hand, is totally opposite to it. Always trying to get new sensation, have varieties in it. It likes certain people, certain places, certain stuff, and after some time it changes again. Something else, different place, different people, different things. It just keeps changing. It gets disgusted after something after some time, and it wants varieties, new stuff to eat. Not satisfied with what it is having. All the excitement, passion is all keeps changing in there. Tamasic, on the other hand, is nothing but laziness, sad, doesn't want to do anything. It gets hurted. It's shameful. It's bored. People with extra tamas tend to suffer depression. That's what it leads into. Because they are always sad. They are undermining themselves. They are depressed. And it's very hard to get out of it. It's like a one-way traffic. And it's going to be tougher when there are lots of tamasic character. And most of the time, it's a combination of all of these three things. But what is more and what is less is the main thing in here. And eventually converting everything to sattvic. But for the most part, it's all in there. Most of the time it will be sattvic. Sometimes it is rajasic. Very less time it is tamasic. For some people, it might be tamasic for the most part, rajasic and then sattva. So it could be any combination. It depends on people. And I think we are our own judge in here. We can judge ourselves better than anybody else in here. So let's look at this one. We're talking about mind for a long time, but is there a way we can purify it? We can make it better? We know it's all with impurities. It's tough to handle it. Yeah, everything is a problem. We're all talking about problem. How could we fix it? So we saw all the way to regulate the mind. But are there any other ways? So let's say we have a screw in home. You're a handy person. You want to fix something. You need a better tool to work on it. You need a screwdriver. Instead of using a blade to cut a wood log, it's better to use a miter saw or electronic saw. A better tool always helps us. It improves the efficiency of the process. So to improve the efficiency of a process, you need a better tool. That is for mantra comes into the picture in here. And Agathir here puts it in a pretty good way of how mantra is, or mandram is. Manamadu semmayanal mandiram jabikka vendam. Manamadu semmayanal vayuvai uyartha vendam. Manamadu semmayanal vasiyai nirtha vendam. Manamadu semmayanal mandiramum semmayame. This is what Agathir says. And it has a deep meaning in it. It's not to be taken very lightly. There are lots of mantras. Perumal says, mandirangal. There are lots of mantras. Every mantra has its own meaning. Every mantra has its own meaning in a physical form, subtle form. Sivaya Nama, Nama Sivaya, Siva Siva. There are lots of mantras. We can just keep on going with mantras. But the underlying of it has to be understood in here. That is the main thing. Perumal says, Omaya Thiru Mandiramam Sorubam. in a level, Godhead manifests into Nadam and Vindu, sound and light, actually, because mind is not able to understand Godhead. And we will see in detail why mind is not able to understand Godhead. So mind has its own limitation. It cannot proceed beyond that. So at this point, we are in the shape of the mind. Mind is what we are, because that's how our thoughts are, that's what we are thinking, and that's how we are operating. So Nadam and Vindu, sound and light, is what basically is the manifestation of the God. And that's what in temples we have Divardhanai being shown and sound in our temples too. So there are all the reasons why we have in temples. So since we are saying God manifests in the form of sound and light as well, we are thinking in the form of mantra and Oli Valibade, which is in the form of light. Because we are what we think what we are. The more we think about something, we become that one. So we think more about Arutperumjothi, that is what we turn into. So our mind expands from a narrow space and it becomes much broader. So Perumal also says, Padi Pusai Yenum Narkriyayal Manam Asutta Bhavanayil Indri Sutta Bhavanayil Nirkum. So with all the mantra chanting, with devotion, of course, with bhakti in there, what happens? The repeated thought process of it with bhakti and bhava, feeling, the feel should be in here. It produces wonderful effects on us. So without bhakti or without the proper devotion in there, the effect is not that much in there. And like how Agatya was saying, if the mind is pure, we really do not even have to go through all the vasi and stuff. So all this mantram, all this vasi are just for purification of mind. We are trying to pure our mind in here. We are trying to get rid of impurity. It is like shining a light on a dark room. So when a light is shined on the dark room, the darkness disappears. Where does the light goes? It is nowhere to be in existence because light is there already. So darkness disappears. It is like that. So mantram is like that. When it enters into the mind, actually, the darkness actually disappears. And only the good thing remains. That is what mantram is. But it has to be said in a devoted manner, in a manner which we can feel from it. And that's really important too. So we know about the mantram Arutperumjothi Mahamandiram. Arutperumjothi, Arutperumjothi, Thaniperum Karunai, Arutperumjothi. Right? So here, Perumal says about Arutperumjothi Mahamandiram. This is a commandment. This is the God's commandment, is what he calls us. Namadu Aandavar kattalayittadu yadenil namakku munsadinam karunai yadanal. So the basis of this is compassion. So since the basis of us and also the basis of Arutperumjothi is compassion, he has openly accepted the Arutperumjothi Mahamandiram. And then Perumanar goes to say, love, compassion, grace are all one and the same. It is no different. It's all one and the same, and there is no difference. Is there a meaning for it? It is in a pretty simple way. Arutperumjothi, Arutperumjothi, Tani Perum Karunai, Arutperumjothi. But there is also a word by word meaning as well for this mantra. And that is Arutperumjothi. Periya Dayavudaya Arive. That is for the Arutperumjothi. Second Arutperumjothi. Purana Inbamam. Thaniperum Karunai. அது ஒப்பற்ற பெரும் தயவுடைய அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி பேர் அறிவாம். So this is the real meaning of it. பெரும் தயவுடைய அறிவே பூரண இன்பமாம். அது ஒப்பற்ற பெரும் தயவுடைய பேரறிவே ஆகும். So that is what Perumanar says. And then he refers to as Igdu Vachiyartham, meaning this is the word by word meaning. In English, we can say enormous compassionate intelligence is eternal bliss. That is unmatched ultimate compassion and ultimate intelligence. So this is what is the real meaning of the Arutperumjothi Mahamandiram, which is accepted by God openly, as said by Perumanar here. And then Perumanar goes on to say that இவ்வண்ணம் சாதினம் முதிர்ந்தால் முடிவாக இன்ப அனுபவம் பெறுவதற்கு தடையில்லை. Meaning, if we live by it, we are going to attain the bliss, and there is nothing going to stop us from it. So this is how Arutperumjothi Mahamandiram is. So right now, we know that there is a tool for us to purify the mind, and that is through the mantra. There are lots of mantra, and when it's done with the real passion and the devotion, with the feel for it, it will start to do wonders. And better when we know what it really means before saying something, what it is. It is all nothing but compassion is what is, if you want to do it in a single word, that's what it's about. Love. Okay. So now, let's see, who am I? So initially we started looking into the body, and we went to the body disciplines. We went into mind. We went into how we can, how the body and the mind interacts with each other. And now we are going to look into soul. Who am I? So Nan Yaranil, Nan Anma. This is what Perumanar says. Perumanar says, who I am is, I am Anma. Sitranu Vadivinan. The size of a small atom is what I am. So, Nan Anma Sitranu Vadivinan. That is what I am. But what we normally think of us is different. We think of us as by name. Oh, I am so and so. Or I am a lecturer. I am a scientist. Or I am a IT professional. I am a doctor. I am a lawyer. So, but who I am is, I am Anma. Sitranu Vadivinan. Size of a small atom. Next one. Kodi Surya Pragasa Atralai Udayavan. Meaning, I have a potential. Millions of suns potential. I have it. So this is what, when we were looking before about Andam and Pindam, which is, Andam is the space and Pindam is the body. Perumal was referring there as Pindam has more potential than even Andam. So, which means the body has more potential than the space. And you can see in here, so there is lots of potential. There's more potential than even sun. And now we are saying where the soul resides. It resides in the center of the head, and it's called as Laladam. This is the center of the head, and it resides in this place called as Laladam. And this is why we are also looking into the Purvamadhi, which is the gateway, which automatically takes it back to all these points. So now let's go ahead and kind of analyze all three now. It's going to be like body, mind, and soul. All three together, and we'll see like what the difference is. And we went in great detail on body and also on mind too, right? Okay, so mind from last week's session and previous week's session, we know that it learned from the sense organs. So we look into something, we observe what's happening in here, we learn from it. Might be good, not good, bad, whatever it is, it goes through it. Same thing, we listen to something, we hear it, we learn from it. We smell something, the touch sensation. So all the five sense organs, the bodily sense organs, are really helping our mind. Mind and body are like friends, very good friends. It works in good cooperation with each other. It listens to each other. And they work pretty good, actually. Very busy as well. But when talking about soul, Perumal says all sense organs are there to help soul only. This includes the mind and the body. So when all sense organs, Indriyam and Karanam, are there to help only soul, why is it said like that? It is said because there is a reason. So in the body, except for soul and intellect, everything in the body is not permanent. That is the main reason to say that. And that's the reason why Perumal is referring to as Sattu Porul. So other than Anma and Arivu, everything, which is the intellect, everything is temporary, is not permanent. And if we think about it, what we are doing, everything in our daily life is nothing but working for all the temporary aspect of things. But really what the goal is, or ideally, all these things are for helping the soul, is what it is. So this actually brings another question, which is answered in Jivakaranya Ulakam. So about the pleasure and pain, what we are going on a daily basis. So can we say that this pleasure and pain, what we are going on a daily basis, is enjoyed by our mind? Or can we say that my mind is happy now, or my mind is sad because of so things, because of an instance? Can we say that? Can we correlate it directly, telling that my mind is what is experiencing all those things? The answer to that is this, and this is all said by Perumal. I'm just translating this thing. So, like what happens is we build a house for us to live in it, and nobody is living without a house. Right? So we build a home and we live there happily in it. and everybody lives in a house, and nobody lives without a house. Similarly, the soul needs a body to reside in, and it cannot exist without it. So a soul needs a body to live, and it cannot exist without it. Also, we can also have another example in here. It is like wearing a glass. It's like wearing a glass, and there are tears in our eyes. Can we say that if the eyes are experiencing the tears, or it's happening because something happened to our eye, or it's the experience of a glass which we are wearing? Similarly, the pleasure and pain is experienced by the soul only, and the mind and body are mere reflections of the soul. It just reflects whatever is in there. All the happiness and all the pain, everything is basically just the reflections of it. Is what's said by Perumal. We are in a stage where we can't completely grasp it because we are not there yet. But this is what Sattvisaram is for, is to introspect and peel the onion and go through layer upon layer onto the body, and then to the mind, and then to the soul, and then maybe keep on going it until we understand the whole thing. So this also brings another important question about the concept of rebirth. And Perumal says in here, let's say there is a family man who rents a home to run his family, and there is an issue with the home or with the homeowner. He's not able to pay rent, or he's not in good terms with the owner of the home. What happens? He has to move to a different home. Either the homeowner soon, depending on how the tenant is, he is soon going to be let go. He's going to ask him to vacate the home, or he would be evicted soon, depending on how the homeowner is acting or how he is in the home. Similarly, we should understood that beyond doubt that we are paying food as a rent to live in this body. And previously too, we had a different body by paying rent as food, and we would have not existed without it. And if we have trouble with this body, we may have to leave this body to take another body. And all living beings had body previously and in the future too. So this one is something to think through it, to take our own time and to think through it a little bit slower. So this example is cited by Perumal because it's easy to understand, because everybody have rented or have been in a home at one point or other, and it's very easy to relate that to the soul. And that is what is happening here, and that's what we are comparing in here. Is basically the soul and how we are taking the body in and living and paying rent as our food in there. So, but this actually boils another question too. Like, why are we not realizing? Why are we not able to realize that there is some divinity beyond us? That question comes too. And there is an explanation for that too. So without experiencing, let's say without experiencing some eatables, without experiencing a dish, do we know how that dish tastes? It is similar to that. We haven't really experienced some of those things. So since we haven't really experienced those things, we really won't like those things because we really haven't experienced it. It is as simple as that. So the liking on that eatable is not going to go unless we have experienced something. Since we have experienced something, we do it. So there are lots of dish here in US, like Spanish dishes, which you would have heard now. And there are lots of South American dishes, Korean dishes, Vietnamese dishes, and stuff like that. But, unless you taste something or experience, how would we know that the dish tasted? We can't. Similarly, is how this experience is too. It's like a catch-22 situation. We are being hit in both ways. We can't go here, neither here nor there. We are let in the middle here. This is the catch-22 situation. So that is where we are. And going a little bit deeper into it, these are all subtle subjects which we are talking about. And if there is no continuity, things sometimes would not catch up. It's like a thread actually, which we are trying to follow in here, like mathematics. Like, there is a step and then the next step and then the next step. There is continuity to do all these things. And there is no easy formula, really. And you will see here why there is no easy formula too. Things definitely are not easy. And if we really want to get into like, I want to see God or I want to attain Godhead, it's going to be a tough ride. There's no easy solution for it. You will see it very clearly what Perumal is saying eventually. And what we can do is, rather we can focus on some worldly things and, at least try to be good in that. And being sometimes partly here and partly there will help. But without proper stuff, you would understand eventually this thing is highly impossible. Not trying to discourage anybody, but that is the truth of the matter. So let's go ahead and talk about this one. So mind is destructible. Body is temporary. Sadness is impure. But again, we compare it back to the Godhead. God is indestructible. Mind is destructible. So destructible, indestructible. So that is basically how we are in the form of human. So mind, body, sadness is what we are in the form of human. Right? And Godhead is completely opposite to who we are. God is totally indestructible. Permanent. Intellect. That is why we are trying to get to that intellect piece of it. And that's why it's said, other than soul and intellect, everything is asattu porul. Sattu porul alla. And then blissness is where the purity is, which is the only pure thing, which no one really have attained. And people who have attained a little bit, they just don't want to get into the world aspect of it. Right? They'll say, I have better than this one. I really don't want to come here. They'll try to stay away from the other aspect of it. So that's what's happening. And then Perumal goes to say, God is realized by soul's knowledge only. So it is beyond body, mind. So when we are in this phase of body and mind, there is no way we will realize God. Because this knowledge is different. This knowledge, we do not have it. This knowledge doesn't come from books. It does not come from reading. It doesn't come from hearing. It doesn't come from five senses. It comes from something else totally. This is what we got to understand. And that comes pretty faster too. It is like reading millions and millions of books in a single flash, as said by many siddhas. How did they attain all those things? It is just that the flash of knowledge. It is pretty fast, but that to get that, these bridges have to be crossed. In Agaval, Perumal refers, Tanu Karanadigal Tam Kadandariyumor Anubhavamagiya Arutperumjothi. So, Tanu Karanangal. Tanu is Udambu. We got to get over with this body. So, the referral to body, we look at someone, we are judgmental, we look at somebody, we go based on what we already had in our siddham, because we have already coined somebody, right? And then, oh, he looks so and so, this person is like that. Oh, he looks so and so, oh, he's like this. So those kind of things should totally not be there. It's outside of the body. And then karanam to mind. So we saw all the manam, buddhi, siddham, agangaram in the last session. So that has to be crossed as well. So both the indriyam and karanam, so both the body and the mind has to be crossed, even to experience anything in here, or even to know a little bit about it. And that's the nature. That is how it's been designed. And if we cannot break that design unless there is effort in it, and through the grace, through Jivagaranya Olukam, all those tools are given to achieve, to get to it very slowly. And that's the reason why we are trying to calm our mind, where a mind can reside in one place, where it doesn't waver, it doesn't think about all the other stuff. At least can it think about one thing at any point of time? If we read a book, we think about only reading the book. We cook, we just only cook. We pay and focus our attention on just one single thing. That's why we were doing in that concentration. And we are going to, in the next session, look about dharana, concentration, on why really it is very important to focus on one single thing, which we can. And it could be anything. It could be anything. It really doesn't matter. To our likeliness. So we will go in detail on it on the next session, which is key for meditation. Otherwise, really, there is no point. We sit in here, think about everything. We can do that thing for the rest of the next 15 years or 25 years or 100 years, 200 years, 300 years. But what do we get out of it? What do we gain from it? Is there improvement? Did we get anything? There should be a use for it in what we are doing. We should all get something out of something. Otherwise, why should we want to do it? There's really no point in doing it. If there is no value added to it, why even we do it? Just because of the sake of doing it? Yeah, we might probably get a little bit stress-free. Yeah, that definitely would happen. We'd be out of stress. Yep. There are some things, multiple things, advantages, but there are some ideal things better than those things as well. So, Tanu Karanangal. So, this soul is beyond our stuff. So, there is a knowledge, intellect. That intellect, we really do not have it. That's what's called as arivu. And if someone actually, for example, someone says, like, "Unakku arivu irukka," right? I mean, we tend to get angry, right? But the reality is, buddhi, arivu, there are differences in it. This arivu, we can call it that it's coming from the soul's thing. That is a different kind of knowledge. It's not the knowledge coming from the senses. And really, we have to question if we have it. It's a different kind of knowledge. There are lots of siddhas and lots of saints, sages who would have flashes of those things, and those flashes actually takes them to a whole different level. And that's why Perumanar says, ஒரு சிறிய ஒளி கண்டு அதன் பின்னாடி போயிடாதீங்க. Don't go back when you get some small benefits out of it. You might get flashes out of it. You might get an advantage out of it in an instance, right? You might get those knowledge, but the problem is people tend to go back on it, and then you would lose that goal of what we really wanted to do. So things like that might happen. So Perumanar here, before here, even for sadhakargal, for practitioners, for spiritual aspirants, he tells clearly, ஒரு சிறிய ஒளி, do not go after that small flash. If you get a small flash, ஒரு சிறிய ஒளி பின்னாடி போயிடாதீங்க. So in these practices, you would start getting stuff, because his disciples, probably they were practicing all these things for some time and were asking Perumanar, like, Perumanar, I don't know when I'm going to get attain this God. I'm not sure when I'm going to see him. Is there a shortcut way? Can I get it instantly, right? Is there something? Is there a sadhana? சாதனங்கள் ஏதாவது இருந்தா சொல்லுங்க, is what he is saying. And that's when he said that. I can give you a sadhana. I can tell you a sadhana, but you will get a flash from it. And then what happens after the flash is you will go on back of the flash. You will start to your own advantage. You might want to do a business after that. You might start, going in a different route. Your goal would totally change. You will go back after something else. That's what he says. Sadhanam ondrum thevai. But still he gives all these things, to attain the salvation. Salvation, you would see, basically is the starting step of Sanmargam. Basically. Because Perumanar says, who is Sanmargi? Sadadavane Sanmargi. Whoever haven't died, he's the real Sanmargi. So everybody is trying to be on the path and making sure they're trying to practice Sanmargam. We are all spiritual aspirants trying to practice and trying to get to it. But the reality is different. The reality is Sagadavane Sanmargi. The goal is set pretty high. And you will see why even moksha or mukti is even the starting point next in the next session. It is just the starting step. You start from that. It's not the end. You just keep going from there, is what Perumanar says. But anyway, let's come back. So, and then finally Perumanar says, even if a small mind exists, the soul's knowledge will not come to experience. This is the real instance which has happened. There was a debate happening between someone in Brahma Samaj and Perumanar, and that person was debating like how we have to think Brahman, which is God, and Perumanar is asking like, how do you think it? Because Brahman is மாயைக்கு அப்பாற்பட்டது. So உடம்பு is மாயைக்கு உட்பட்டது. So body and mind is within this maya stuff, right? Brahman is beyond it. So how would you think it? And in that final explanation is what he says all these things. And finally he says, even if a small mind exists, soul's knowledge will not come into experience. Then he also says, but we can always, with devotion, try to pray with the mind. What we saw about Nadam and Vindu. the sound and light, and we go by it because that is what mind's experience is at this point. But at some point when it subsides and it is going down and it's not interfering, that is the only way we can achieve soul's knowledge. Otherwise, soul's knowledge will not come into experience. So, and finally, after that, he says, after mind has subsided completely, you experience the God. When it has subsided, it's gone. That's it. It's nowhere to be seen. So this is what's given. Soul is what's given to us. So this is why it's said that we have to understand ourselves before even understanding God. If we don't understand the soul, we can't even tap into it. This is what is being used to tap into Godhead. Without that, it's going to be tough. It's not possible. There is no possible way. So that is the reason why this has been laid out in a way that body discipline, mind discipline, and then when both are done, eventually soul's knowledge can be achieved there. So with this, I think we are getting close to this session. And next session, we are getting into meditation, Suttha Sanmarga meditation. And we'll go in details on that. That I'm not with that actually comes with the prerequisites of we understand all this mind and bodily disciplines, and we follow all these things to be successful in that meditational practice of Suttha Sanmargam. Thank you, everybody, and I'll hand this over to Gandhi Anaya. Thank you, Gandhi Anaya.
Thank you for the wonderful discourse, Balaji. Now, the subject matter today was not only interesting, but it went into deeper into what Perumal has advocated in his writings. Now, one main issue here is to answer the question, who am I? We may have seen movies, who am I? But in actual fact, that particular phrase has got a lot of meaning in it. Sometimes we go in search of it, and if you go on us, I mean, I have gone through many paths before, and this is one pertinent question people will ask. I mean, the devotees will ask, how to find out who am I, stuff like that. And the normal answer given is you close your eyes and you try to do self-realization to identify who you are yourself. Alright? So, Balaji, as Perumal, have Perumal given any insight into this particular phrase in a deeper meaning? Would you share with us, please? Thank you.
Sure, that's actually a very great question. It is what Sattvisaram is about, and Perumal has said that in great details too. So what we have to do is we have to think about body, we have to think about mind a lot, and in the body, like we have to actually first take, it's called as seer scene analysis too. So like we have to take the eyes first, and we have to take the mind with it. So what eyes is doing? Eyes is looking at an object. What else is doing? So okay, now second object. So let's first take only eye, right? Let's first discount mind at this question. Let's take only eye. Eye is looking at this object. Okay, I'm looking at a chair. I'm looking at this one. So the objects keep changing. But what's happening to our eye? The eye is not changing. The eye is remaining fixed in there. So what is true in here? The true for now is the eye. But what is not true here is the object which is changing every point of time. So similarly, what's happening with the taste, right? What is happening with the ears? So what we have, our body is same at that point, but the objects are keep changing, and then we have to go into mind after that. So the same object, whatever we have, we are seeing, but the mind is coming into the picture. But what happens now? So eye can have cataract, or it can go bad too. Now we can say, oh, you know what? Eye is also not permanent. Eye is also temporary. But what happens? Eye gives me a picture of that thing. So there is something permanent which is observing all those things. So that is not definitely eye. That is something which is inside me, and that is the mind. Right? And then eventually we go ahead deeper into it. Okay, now soul comes into the picture. The same objects there, and then we are looking the eye, and then comes the mind, and then comes the soul, and then says, oh, mind? How is mind permanent? Is mind permanent? No, it keeps changing it too. So whatever we know, this is the base concept of it. Whatever we know is not true. We have to proceed with that one. Whatever we know is not true, and then we keep on going inner into the same direction of body, mind, and soul, and we keep on introspecting it back and again for every single thing, for anger, for every tattvangal, every single thing we can inspect, and with all these introspections we will find something, and that is what soul will stand alone on itself.